Hey everybody. Now, as you all know, my top priority for our community is cleaning up our waterways, whether it's getting funding or the appropriations for the EAA reservoir or the Herbert Hoover Dike or redoing the management schedule for Lake Okeechobee or other policies. That is what we work on for our backyard. Now, we've had a lot happen in this week in that fight, and so I wanted to take a minute and give you all a quick update. Now, first off, this week, the head of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Lieutenant General Scott Spellman, testified in front of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. You might remember this wasn't the first time that General Spellman has appeared before our committee. Back in July, I asked him about the hazardous conditions that the Army Corps of Engineers personnel who work on Lake Okeechobee are exposed to, uniformed and civilian. That is to say, these are uniformed soldiers, your Army personnel and civilians who work at the Port Myakka Lock and Dam. He told me that those under his command were not being poisoned, even though they're exposed to these toxic conditions for up to 10 hours a day. My question to you is simply this. Given that information and that you acknowledged about a year and a half ago that it is toxic water, would you say that your soldiers and personnel at Port Myakka are being poisoned?
No, I would not. I would say we're going to follow the.
Are you willing to risk your career on the fact that your soldiers and civilians are not being poisoned?
So we're going to follow the best guidance from the Florida Department of Health and the EPA.
This week, he doubled down on that lie, even when I asked him about the EPA's concerns with people inhaling aerosolized cyanotoxins produced by the toxic conditions on Lake Okeechobee. By the way, the most toxic they've ever been measured in Lake Okeechobee's history was this summer, and the fact that all of those personnel are now required to wear masks and gloves at work when they're exposed to that. What he couldn't answer was why would they have to wear masks and gloves if they're not being poisoned? Listen, if the Florida Department of Health said, listen, you're following their guidance, wear a mask and gloves. You said you're following Florida Department of Health. Why do you have to wear a mask and gloves if you're not being poisoned?
Sure, I'm sure it has to do with precautions given the conditions that we're forced to work in your state.
He refused to answer, refused to acknowledge that his people are in fact being exposed. Now, as a 3-star general, Spellman is supposed to protect those he oversees. If he isn't going to take their well-being seriously, he needs to be replaced with somebody who will. Also this week, we got an update on the Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual, the LOSOM rewrite. Now, as I've said before, the current draft, it is a great improvement on the status quo, but there's still some very real threats with this plan that we need to take very seriously. The latest is that there is a lobbying effort underway from the sugar industry, of course, and their allies to use what they are calling a conservation mode to store extra water in Lake Okeechobee. They use Lake Okeechobee as their own personal reservoir. In essence, they want water managers to keep more water than is needed in Lake Okeechobee just in case they might need it at some unspecified point in the future. Now, in turn, this causes the lake to get too high during hurricane season, the same problem that we face every year, why we've had these toxic discharges year after year, and then all that extra water that was stored for the just in case for their special interest gets dumped into our coast. That's not going to happen. I've told the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that if they threaten that, I will very literally anchor my boat to their lock and dam beyond Port Myakka so that they have to physically sink my boat in order to actually start dumping that water. We need to prevent this kind of conservation mode, however, from being included in that piece of the bill rewrite to make sure that the new Lake Okeechobee operating schedule will be implemented in the best way possible in the years to come, not subject to the whims of political appointees or lobbyists from the sugar industry who are sympathetic to the sugar industry's every possible demand. It's been a long fight and it's far from over, but I promise to keep you all updated every single step of the way. I'm going to continue to fight for our waterways. As always, it is an honor to serve you. I wish you all the best. You all take care.